Hello, before I start this video, disclaimer, I'm not a mortgage advisor, I'm not a financial advisor. If you need advice on mortgage or finance, then it's best to get in contact or in touch with your mortgage advisor or your financial advisor. So in this video, I'm going to share different ways to pay off your mortgage faster in the UK, England. So the what I'm going to share is just coming from my own personal experience. So for first-time buyers, but years back, it used to be the minimum deposit that a first-time buyer would have to give to buy a house on a mortgage used to be 5%. But for me, when I got my mortgage, it was 5% deposit as a first-time buyer, so that's the deposit I gave, and so that was the minimum deposit. You can give more than the minimum deposit if you have the money, but if you don't, the minimum deposit when I bought mine was a 5%. That was back in 2019. Yes, 2019. But ever since, obviously things have changed. I believe, if I'm not wrong, and correct me if I'm wrong, the minimum deposit on the mortgage for a first-time buyer has gone up. Is no longer 5%. I think it might be 10%, 15%. I'm not sure, as a minimum for first-time buyer mortgage. Now, the points I'm trying to make here is, if you're saving up to buy your mortgage, your first mortgage, and it's a home that you're going to live in, it's going to be a residential home. That's your home. You're going to live there. And let's say they ask you for a minimum deposit of 10%. And remember, you can't give more than what the minimum percent deposit says. You can give more than that. It doesn't have to be the minimum. If you have the money, you can give more. But let's say the minimum they ask for is 10%, and you've saved your 10% deposit, and you're going to the bank, and you obviously sit down with your mortgage advisor. They advise you on everything. You can ask as many questions as you want, and they can answer all those questions. Some people and then they'll tell you how many years you have to pay off that mortgage. I believe when I first got mine in 2019, they told me you have 40 years to pay off this mortgage. That is the maximum number of years you can have to pay off a mortgage, maximum. Now, there are ways to reduce that number of years. I only paid a minimum deposit, which was 5%, because that's all the money I had. I didn't have more than that for a deposit, so I gave that, and they went through my finances, and they said you only qualify to get to have 40 years to pay off this mortgage, and that's the maximum number of years. And they said, if you want to reduce this number of years, instead of paying to have this mortgage for 40 years, basically up until I retire. And I got my mortgage when I was in my 20s. So 40 years, that's like 60 something. When I retire, that's when I'll finish paying off my mortgage. That sounds scary. When they told me that, I was like, what? It take me all the way until I retire from working. When I'm 60 something, that's when I finally finished paying off my mortgage. I was new to this. I was new to paying off to mortgage, so I just thought, oh, I'll get a mortgage, why not? And when they told me that, I said, wow, that's a long time to pay off a debt. Very long time. But according to my finances, I didn't have money. I don't, even now I still don't have money. But they told me I have to be in my mortgage, keep paying it every month, but maximum is 40 years. And I was like, well, that's all I can afford, so I'll take it. Yeah, I took it. But later on, well, also they told my mortgage advisor said, you can reduce the number of years you have on this mortgage. Some of the ways are, instead of paying 5% deposit, which is the minimum as a first-time buyer, you can save more money and pay more deposits, a higher deposit. However, you could pay 10 deposit, 12% deposit. It just depends on how much more money you can save and how long you are willing to save for. So some people, like if back then when it used to be 5% deposit, they would just take the time and save for 10% deposit, 20% deposit, 15% deposit, and then and then get a mortgage. That way it will reduce the number of years. So instead of getting 40 years, which is the maximum number, back then it was, I don't know how many years it is now, instead of, because you paid higher deposit than the minimum as a first time buyer, that reduces the number of years that you have on that mortgage until you pay it all off, by a lot. So it might, instead of being a 40-year mortgage, which back then in 2019 was the maximum, it would reduce it to maybe 15 years, 10 years. Just the more percentage you put into it as a deposit, the less number of years you have to pay the whole mortgage off. So so that's one way of paying off your mortgage faster. And also it will reduce, they told me it will reduce, if you pay a higher deposit to begin with, it will reduce the number of years that you have to pay off the whole mortgage. It will reduce the interest that you have to pay on that mortgage. And also it will reduce, because every month you have to pay. Once you are given the keys, you have to start paying off every month. You have to give the bank, however much money that they ask you. So that will reduce as well, because your deposit was so high. So those are the ways that you can pay off your mortgage. Now, saving up for a mortgage takes a long time because it's a lot of money, and houses are expensive now. Even back then it was expensive, and now it's even worse, right? So saving up for a deposit to buy a mortgage could be really daunting. It will take a long time because it's just a lot of money to save. And if you don't have anyone that can help you give you some money, like let's say family members or best friends or parents who can help you out with your deposit and give you some of the money, or maybe even all of it, and then you add more money to it. So from your own money, if you don't have that support, it could take you a very long time to save up just the deposit. So you don't have to save more than the minimum deposit that they ask for. If they ask for 10% deposit and that's the minimum for a first time buyer, you don't have to save more than that. If you've already saved a 10% deposit, you don't need to keep saving until you get 20% deposit or 15% deposit, especially if you need a place to stay and you go that. It's urgent that you get your own place and you already have your 10% deposit. You can, if you really have no other choice and you can't wait and you just need to get a place, if you already have saved your deposit, which is the minimum, you can still go ahead and get the mortgage, as long as you know that the monthly payments, you'll be able to cover that. You'll be able to cover your monthly payments. Even if they tell you have 40 years to pay off the whole mortgage, which is a very long time. You would love for it to be less than 40 years. You would love for it to be 10 years or 15 years or 20 years or 25 years. But that can only happen if you save a higher deposit, if you pay a higher deposit. But if you don't have, if you just can't wait to move out and you already have your 10% deposit, which is the minimum, you can still pay that, as like I said, as long as you have, you know that your monthly payments, you can cover that. You're okay covering that, paying that every month, because you go to pay your mortgage every month. Then you can just accept. You go ahead and get your mortgage. And then there are two ways as well. So this is UK, England. And I'm not sure how things are now. I'm talking about back in 2019. And this is because that's when I got my mortgage. I'm just talking from my own experience, right? You can choose with the interest, you can choose variable interest or capped interest. So you could choose, like, I think 5 years interest, which is capped. So whatever interest rate is available that year, it could be 4%, it could be 3%, it could be 5%, whatever interest rate there is at that time of when you're taking your mortgage, you could cap that or get a fixed rate. So you can have 5 years where you're paying the same amount of money every single month towards your mortgage to the bank for 5 years. So you know how much you're paying, how much your mortgage is every month for 5 years. Or you can have so that's a fixed term interest. I'm talking about interest now. Or you can choose to have variable interest rate, which means every month the amount of interest they'll be adding to your mortgage. So there's so the amount of interest they'll be adding to your mortgage could change. So this month, I don't know, it could be £300. Next month it might go up. It might be 350 or 400. I don't know. It varies. That's why it's called variable interest rate. Or it might go down. It might be less than 300, or it could be any number. It doesn't have to be 300. It could be 100 or whatever. So it's variable. It changes every month, or every 2 months. I don't know how often, but it will be changing because it's variable. Or you can get fixed term. I got fixed term on mine because I was comfortable with having a 5 years. During the period of 5 years, I know exactly how much I'm paying, and I know I can pay that. So, that's one way. So first way of paying off your mortgage fast is to save as much deposit. If you can save, take your time and save a deposit that is higher than the minimum percentage that they're asking for. That will really help. It will help you pay your mortgage faster. But if you can't, that's okay. As long as you can just still pay the deposit, the minimum deposit, and don't go above that. As long as like I said, as long as your monthly payment towards your mortgage, you can cover that. It's fine. And then once you have your mortgage, they've given you the keys. You can also, another way of paying off your mortgage faster is once they've handed you the keys. Now you have the house. You can pay every year within a period of 1 year, and that's every year. There's an amount of money that you're allowed to overpay towards your mortgage. So however much you're paying every month towards your mortgage, you can, on top of that, you can add more money towards it. So the overpayments. Let's say this month, every month you pay, I don't know, £1,000 towards your mortgage, right? Now that's every month. On top of that, in that 1 month you pay £1,000, you can pay £1,200. You can add £200 extra. You can add £100 extra. You could add however much you are able to afford in that month. You can add to it, or you can choose to pay the whole thing in 1 year. But that's called the overpayment without paying charges. If you've been adding or you've been overpaying towards your mortgage, right? if you are within the limit, because within a year, if you reach the limit or you are within the limit within a year of overpaying towards your mortgage, then you don't pay charges because for overpaying your mortgage. If you go beyond the allowance, overpaying allowance, then you get charged. Let's say your allowance to overpay your mortgage every year, let's say it's £8,000. So, and let's say every month you put £1,000 towards your mortgage, and then the bank says on top of that you could also pay £8,000 in a year. No, and that's the overpayment. So in that £8,000, you could choose to pay that, divide that by 12, and however much that is, you can be adding that to your £1,000, and all this goes towards your mortgage, right? If you stick within the £8,000 in a year, you're fine. You're not gonna get charged for overpaying your mortgage. If you go beyond £8,000, then you're gonna get charged. And you can always check this on your payslip, on your bank statement, to see if you've gone above your overpayment limits. So this is another way, and this limit, let's say it's £8,000, is just an example. You could put any time, you could put any amount of money you have. You could put £10, you could put £5, you can put £15, you can put however much you have. It changes. You can even add whatever changes you have. Just throw it in there. If you go £5, lying around, instead of taking that £5 and go to the corner shop and buy maybe Coca-Cola or a pack of crisps and just waste that money like that, because to be honest, you don't need Coca-Cola, especially when you have food at home in the fridge or freezer or cupboards in the kitchen, and you just fancy a Coca-Cola. £5 is gone. That £5, you can put it towards your mortgage. That £2, you can add it towards your mortgage. £20, you can add it towards your mortgage. Just these kind of changes that sometimes they are overlooked, and they're just like, oh, okay, that, and you're thinking, oh, let me go to the shop and grab this, and things that you don't really need, and you're wasting money like that. You could literally make an effort to think, oh, that £5, right? Put it towards a mortgage. I know it's only £5, like what on earth? It's not going to change anything. It's not going to pay off your mortgage, but every little helps, right? Every little helps. If you make the habit of paying £10, £20, whatever change you have, you think, you know what, put that into the mortgage, put that into the mortgage, put that into the mortgage. And if you have more, you can add to it, and you just make that a habit. And then obviously you make sure you know that within a year you don't go beyond £8,000, so you don't get charged. Before you know it, your mortgage, you won't end up keeping that mortgage for 40 years. Your maximum number of years on that mortgage will reduce, and you before you know it, you think, wait a minute, I had 40 years to pay this mortgage off. Oh, wait a minute, no, I've paid it off now, and it's only been 25 years. It's only been 30 years. Wait, I paid it off earlier. I can't believe it. That's great. That's amazing, right? It's a good feeling if you want to pay off a mortgage. Now, it's not everyone who wants to pay off the mortgage, but some people prefer to pay off the mortgage earlier than all the way until they retire. Some people prefer to do that. If you want to pay off a mortgage faster, these are the ways. Always speak to your mortgage advisor. They have a lot of advice. That's what they call mortgage advisors. They have a lot of advice, tips on how. If you got questions, just ask them. Ask them, call them, ask them, go to the branch, talk to them. They're all on the phone. They will tell you a lot. They will tell you so many different ways to help you with your mortgage if you want to pay your mortgage off earlier. So these are just some tips that I've learned on my own mortgage. So you could be adding more and more money, and you don't have to have a lot of money. You don't need to think, oh, right, okay, I can't even paying off this mortgage. This mortgage is so expensive. I don't have money. But do you have £10 change? Do you have £20 change? Every now and then you do get some sort of change. You know, don't just take that change and spend it on things that you don't really need. You could put that towards your mortgage. It's such a small amount of money. But like I said, every penny counts, every little helps. And if it's going towards a good cause, right, then you're doing yourself a favor. If that's the mission you're on, trying to pay off your mortgage earlier. So that's another way of paying off your mortgage earlier. So remember, they told you 40 years. Now, this is the thing. When I first got my mortgage, I didn't know any of this. I thought, okay, now I've got a mortgage. Great. Fine. So I know every month, because I took a 5 year fixed term, um, fixed what's it called, fixed interest. So I know every month how much I pay towards my mortgage, and that's all I did. I know I've got 40 years. This is how much I pay every month, and every 5 years this will change, and I'll renew it. So that's it. Going on with my life. Every month this much goes to the mortgage, and that's it. That's it. Until I was told, wait a minute, it doesn't have to be that way. If you want to pay earlier, this is what you can do. You can be adding to it. You can be, and also, let's say you start earning more, right? So let's say you got a job that pays you even more money, and so you start earning more, or you got a promotion. You can go back to your bank, speak to your mortgage advisor, and this advice, I got it back in 2019, and you can change your monthly payment from what you normally pay, and say, I'm gonna pay more than that. Let's say your monthly payment is £1,000. You can say, you know what, I'm gonna be paying from now on every month, instead of £1,000, I want to be paying £1,300 every month. Yeah, and then they can do that. They'll change it to that, and then on top of that, you can be putting in this extra here and there, this extra, because remember, you got that allowance a year to overpay your mortgage. So you're already paying £1,300 a month, and then on top of that, you look into the allowance that you have to overpay your mortgage every year, and then you can be adding in there every now and then. You just do it online on online banking. You do this on online banking. Every year you just do your overpayment. Throw in there £20, £10, £15, £50, however much you have, and however little you have. Throw it in there. That way, before you know it, you end up paying your mortgage much earlier. Much, much earlier. And if that's what you really want, and that's what you really desire to do, it's such a relief. So these are the tips. I got these tips, and I thought, you know what, it wouldn't hurt to share this with other people, because I didn't know. And when you don't know something, you can't ask, because how can you ask about something you don't know? You have to know or have an idea, and then go ahead and ask. You can't ask a question that you have no idea what is going on, right? Until I was told, and I was like, oh, that's a good idea. So then I got in touch with my mortgage advisor and asked further questions, and then they confirmed things, and I was like, wow, I didn't know this. It's good to know, right? So if I didn't know, then I'm sure there's someone out there who doesn't know this as well, right? Sometimes you ask questions and think, I've asked every question, I don't think I have any more questions. Okay, great, let's go ahead. And then you hear people saying, wait, actually you can do that and that and that and that, And you're thinking, well, I want to do that. That sounds like a great idea. I want to do that as well because it will benefit you greatly. And you think, oh, I didn't know you could do that. Okay, so then you get in touch with your mortgage advisor and they can confirm things. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm sharing this. It might help one if or two people, or I don't know how many people out there. If you didn't know this before, these are the things you could ask your mortgage advisor if you're in the process of getting your first mortgage. And if you already have a mortgage, these are the things you could do to try, if this is what you're interested in. These are the things you could do to try and pay off your mortgage earlier, if that's what you're interested in. And if this video helps at least one person, I'm happy. I'm so happy that it did, because sharing is caring, right? If you found something that helps you, I'm sure there's someone out there who would need that help, but they just don't know they need it until they hear it, and then they're like, yes, you know what? Yeah, I want that because I see how that can help me as well. So I want to try this as well. And that's what it is. Um, that's all I wanted to share really about the mortgage. So I hope this is helpful. And I hope you have a great night or great day or great evening or great weekend or great weekday. Yeah. So anyway, thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.